Alex Trebek stopped mid-sentence and stared at the letter. In 37 years of hosting, he'd never broken a rule. By Friday night, he would risk everything he'd built to protect a stranger he'd barely met. The decision would either destroy his career or prove what real courage looked like. And he would do it so quietly that millions of viewers would never know what really happened. But how did a single anonymous letter push America's most trusted game show host to the breaking point? It was October 1995, and Jeopardy was riding high. Alex Trebek, the silver-haired Canadian who'd become more American than most Americans, had been hosting the show for 11 years. The blue-eyed, mustached host had transformed from a relative unknown into America's favorite quiz show master. His calm voice could make rocket science sound simple, his gentle smile could put nervous contestants at ease, and his unwavering fairness had earned him a place in American homes that felt almost sacred. He was the guy who made smart look approachable, who could pronounce difficult words without making you feel stupid, and who treated every contestant with the same respectful curiosity. That Tuesday started like any other. Alex arrived at Sony Pictures Studios at his usual time, 8:30 a.m. sharp. The veteran host, always impeccably dressed in his tailored suits, liked to get there early. He'd review the questions in his methodical way, chat with the crew members he'd known for years, and prepare mentally for the day's taping sessions. He was a creature of habit, and those habits had served him well throughout his decades in television. But when he walked into his familiar dressing room, something was different. The envelope sat alone on his wooden desk, separate from the usual pile of fan mail and production notes. His assistant, Maggie Richardson, a gray-haired woman in her 50s who'd been with the show since the beginning, was organizing papers nearby with her typical efficiency. She looked up when he entered, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "Morning, Alex. That came for you yesterday after you left. Hand-delivered." Alex picked up the envelope and turned it over in his hands. Just his name, written in neat cursive. No postmark, no return address. The paper felt heavy, expensive. He set it aside and went through his normal routine. Black coffee in his favorite mug, careful review of the day's categories, a quick chat with the producers about any unusual answers they might need to discuss. But the envelope kept drawing his attention like a magnet. During the first commercial break of taping, Alex finally opened it with careful fingers. The letter inside was typed on plain paper, single-spaced and signed only with initials. As Alex read, his usually composed expression grew serious, then troubled, then something close to angry. "Dear Mr. Trebek," it began. "I'm writing about something that happened during yesterday's taping. I work here at the studio, though I can't identify myself for obvious reasons. During the contestant interviews, you spoke with Maria Gonzalez, the school teacher from Phoenix. What you didn't know is that before the show, one of the associate producers made a comment to her that I found deeply troubling." Alex's jaw tightened as he continued reading, his blue eyes scanning each word. He told her that her accent was too thick and that she should try to sound more American during the interview portion. When she asked what he meant, he said viewers might have trouble understanding her and that it would be better if she toned down the ethnic thing. She was devastated. I watched her in the green room afterward, practicing her answers over and over, trying to change how she spoke. The letter went on to detail how Maria had been brilliant during the practice rounds, confident and quick with her responses, her dark eyes sparkling with intelligence. But during the actual taping, she seemed nervous, hesitant, constantly second-guessing herself. Alex remembered thinking she seemed different than during rehearsal, but he'd assumed it was just camera nerves affecting the petite, well-dressed educator. "I know you can't do anything about what already happened," the letter concluded, "but I thought you should know. Maria is a wonderful person and a great teacher. She deserved better than that. Thank you for reading this." Alex had enforced the rules for decades, but this was the first time he realized fairness could be broken without breaking a single rule. Alex folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket right over his heart. On the surface, nothing changed. He finished the day's taping with his usual professionalism, bantered with contestants during commercial breaks, and wrapped up the sessions on schedule. But inside, something much more dangerous than anger was building. It was the kind of quiet determination that had carried him through decades of television, the same resolve that had made him one of the most respected hosts in America. That evening, Alex sat in his home office, a comfortable room lined with books and memorabilia from his years in television. The letter lay open on his desk under the warm glow of his reading lamp. He'd read it 3 more times, and each reading made the fire in his chest burn hotter. Not the explosive kind of anger that demands immediate action, but the quiet, burning kind that settles deep and doesn't go away. The kind that changes a man permanently. Alex Trebek prided himself on fairness. It was the cornerstone of everything he did on Jeopardy, the foundation of his entire career. Every contestant got the same respect, the same encouragement, the same chance to shine under those bright studio lights. The idea that someone on his production team had undermined that fairness, had made a contestant feel less than welcome, went against everything he stood for as a host and as a human being. But what could he do that wouldn't destroy innocent people along with the guilty? The incident had already happened. The show had been taped. Maria Gonzalez, the dedicated teacher with the warm smile and careful answers, had played, done reasonably well, and gone home to Phoenix with her winnings and her Jeopardy experience. Confronting the associate producer now would be his word against an anonymous letter. It could create workplace tension, maybe even cost someone their job based on an accusation that couldn't be proven in any court of law. Alex got up from his leather chair and walked to his window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline twinkling in the distance. The easy thing would be to file the letter away and forget about it. The safe thing would be to assume it was an exaggeration or a misunderstanding. The smart thing from a career perspective would be to let sleeping dogs lie. But Alex Trebek had built his career on not taking the easy path, and he wasn't about to start now. The next morning, Alex arrived at the studio even earlier than usual, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his tie knotted with military precision. Instead of going to his dressing room for his usual routine, he went straight to the production office. The associate producer mentioned in the letter was a young man named Derek Phillips, ambitious and efficient but sometimes lacking in the sensitivity that comes with age and experience. Alex found him reviewing contestant applications for the following week, his blonde hair falling across his forehead as he worked. "Derek, got a minute?" "Sure, Alex. What's up?" Derek looked up with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been seriously challenged. Alex closed the office door with deliberate care and sat down across from Derek's cluttered desk. "I wanted to talk to you about the contestant interviews. How do you think they've been going?" Derek leaned back in his chair, relaxed and unsuspecting. "Pretty good overall. We've got some interesting people coming through. Yesterday's group was solid. Tell me about Maria Gonzalez." Derek's expression shifted slightly, a brief flicker of something Alex couldn't quite identify. "The teacher from Phoenix. Nice lady, bit of a language barrier, but she did fine in the end." "Language barrier, you know, the accent. Sometimes contestants with strong regional accents have trouble connecting with the audience. I just mentioned that she might want to speak a little more clearly, that's all." Alex kept his voice level, but his blue eyes had gone cold. "What exactly did you tell her?" "Nothing major, just that she should try to sound more American during the interview. You know how some viewers can be about accents." There it was. Not malicious maybe, but thoughtless and hurtful in a way that cut deeper than intentional cruelty. Alex felt that quiet anger burn a little brighter, but his voice remained steady. Alex had corrected contestants on facts for decades. Now he was correcting something far more dangerous, a belief. "Derek, I need you to think very carefully about what you just said. Sound more American. What does that mean exactly?" Derek seemed to realize he'd stepped into something deeper than he'd expected. His confident posture began to crumble. "I mean, you know, clearer English, easier for people to understand. Maria Gonzalez is American, Derek." Alex's voice carried the weight of absolute authority now. "She was born in California. She's a United States citizen who teaches American children in an American school. Her English is perfectly clear. What you told her was that she wasn't American enough for our show." The room went quiet except for the distant hum of studio equipment. Derek's face reddened, and for the first time since Alex had known him, the young man looked genuinely ashamed. "Alex, I didn't mean it that way. I was just trying to help her connect with the audience. By making her feel like she didn't belong?" Alex stood up, his full height and authority filling the small office. "Derek, Jeopardy is watched by millions of Americans. They don't all look the same, they don't all sound the same, and they don't all have the same background. But they're all Americans, and they all deserve to see themselves represented on our show. When you tell a contestant to sound more American, you're telling every viewer who sounds like her that they're not American enough either." Derek was staring at his hands now, the weight of his mistake finally settling on his shoulders. "I never thought of it that way. That's the problem. You didn't think. But thinking is what we do here, Derek. That's the whole point of the show." Alex's voice softened slightly, but the steel remained underneath. "I want you to call Maria Gonzalez in Phoenix. I want you to apologize to her personally, And I want you to explain that what you said was wrong, that she represented herself and her community beautifully on our show, and that we're honored to have had her as a contestant." Derek nodded quickly. "Of course, absolutely. And Derek, in the future, if you have concerns about how a contestant might come across, you bring them to me, not to the contestant, to me. Clear?" "Yes, sir. Crystal clear." But Alex wasn't finished. That conversation was just the beginning of what would become the most important week of changes in Jeopardy's history. Over the next few days, he quietly implemented reforms that would ensure something like this never happened again. He scheduled mandatory sensitivity training for all production staff who interacted with contestants. He revised the contestant guidelines to explicitly state that contestants should be themselves, speak naturally, and never feel pressured to change their authentic voice or manner. Most importantly, Alex made a personal commitment that would define the rest of his career. From that day forward, he would pay closer attention to the atmosphere backstage, to how contestants were treated when the cameras weren't rolling. He would be the guardian of the show's values, not just its host. Millions watched Alex Trebek every night. None of them ever saw the decision that mattered most. 3 weeks later, Alex received another letter. This one wasn't anonymous. It was from Maria Gonzalez herself, written on Phoenix Elementary School letterhead in her careful teacher's handwriting. "Dear Mr. Trebek," it began. "I don't know if you remember me, but I was a contestant on Jeopardy 3 weeks ago. I wanted to thank you for the most incredible experience of my life, but I especially wanted to thank you for the phone call I received from your production team yesterday." The letter went on to describe Derek's apology, how surprised and moved she'd been to receive it, and how it had restored her faith in the fairness and kindness of the show she'd loved watching since childhood. She wrote about how the experience had changed her, how she'd returned to her classroom with renewed confidence, how she'd started a Jeopardy club for her students. "You see, Mr. Trebek, before the taping, someone made me feel like I didn't quite belong on your stage. But your show, and the phone call afterward, reminded me that I do belong, not just on Jeopardy, but in this country, in my classroom, and in any room I enter. Thank you for that reminder." Alex kept that letter in his desk drawer for the rest of his career, the paper growing soft with handling over the years. Whenever he had a difficult decision to make, whenever he had to choose between the easy path and the right path, he would remember Maria Gonzalez and the lesson she'd taught him about the power of fairness, even in small moments. The changes Alex implemented that week became a permanent part of how Jeopardy treated its contestants. The sensitivity training became annual training that other shows began to copy. The contestant guidelines became a model that game shows across the industry adopted. And Alex's personal attention to backstage dynamics became legendary among the crew and contestants who experienced it firsthand. But there was more to this story that Alex never told anyone, not even his closest friends. Every year on the anniversary of that Tuesday morning, Alex would receive a card, not from Maria Gonzalez, but from someone who signed only with the initials MR, the mysterious letter writer who had started it all. The cards were simple, usually just a thank you, sometimes including news about other contestants who had been helped by the changes Alex had made. The identity of MR remained a secret that Alex never tried to uncover. He respected their choice to remain anonymous, understanding that some acts of courage are meant to stay in the shadows. Years later, when reporters asked Alex about his legacy, about what he was most proud of in his decades of hosting, he rarely talked about the celebrity tournaments or the record ratings or the Emmy Awards collecting dust on his shelves. Instead, he talked about the letters from teachers who said Jeopardy inspired their students, from kids who said the show made them love learning, from families who said it brought them together every evening around the television. And sometimes, though not often, he talked about the importance of making sure everyone felt welcome on the stage, of treating every contestant not just as a player in a game, but as a representative of their community and their dreams. The anonymous letter writer never identified themselves publicly. Alex never knew who had taken the personal and professional risk to speak up for Maria Gonzalez, but he was grateful every day for that person's courage. They had taught him that sometimes the most important thing a person in power can do is listen to the quiet voices, the ones that speak up not for themselves but for others who have no voice at all. In a world where television often seemed to be getting louder, more dramatic, more sensational, Alex Trebek found his own quiet way to make a difference. Not with grand gestures or public speeches, but with private conversations, careful changes, and a commitment to treating every person who stepped onto his stage with the dignity they deserved. The envelope that started it all was eventually thrown away, The letter from Maria Gonzalez was not. Alex kept it until the day he died, a reminder that fairness isn't just about getting the answers right on camera. Sometimes it's about making sure everyone gets a fair chance to be heard, to belong, to be themselves without apology. That's the story of how a simple letter changed the way America's most trusted game show host thought about his responsibilities, not just to entertain, not just to educate, but to make sure that in his small corner of the world, everyone who deserved respect got it, and everyone who had been made to feel small was reminded of their worth. And that perhaps was Alex Trebek's greatest answer of all. Not the one he gave on camera, but the one he gave when the cameras stopped rolling and real life began. The truth is, most of us will never host a television show watched by millions. But all of us have moments when we can choose between the easy path and the right path, between staying quiet and speaking up, between preserving our comfort and protecting someone else's dignity. Alex Trebek showed us that heroism doesn't always announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. Sometimes it whispers in anonymous letters and reveals itself in private phone calls and lives on in revised policies that treat people a little bit better than they were treated before. That Tuesday morning envelope contained more than a letter. It contained a test of character that Alex Trebek passed quietly, completely, and permanently. The way he handled that test reminded us all why he became not just a television host, but a trusted voice in American homes for nearly 4 decades. What would you have done with that letter? That's the question Alex Trebek would want us to ask ourselves. And that's the legacy of a man who never forgot that true wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about making sure everyone gets a fair chance to find them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Thank you for watching.